Come, let us forget about meditation apps, for crease counting works so much better. By crease counting, what I mean is Bengali crease counting, wherein we play with our own fingers in a way that not only tracks our mindfulness and meditation, but that actually enhances it. But how can I say that when there are so many interesting apps and bells and whistles that are merely a download away? In days of yore, meditators would light multiple sticks of incense sequentially. They would figure out how long a stick of incense took to burn. So for instance, if it took 20 minutes to burn and they lit one incense stick after another, then after 3 incense sticks, they would know they had sat for 60 minutes. In different traditions, people would count beads and realize that that didn't take very long, and so they would count beads to count beads, multiple abacuses. They're known as counters in Tibet. We now have, welcome to the age of the technological terror. For more than 10 years now, we've had smartphones, which are really cool, have interesting graphics and fun sounds. But, cranky fascists wearing body armor can confiscate our mala and our incense and our smartphones. But we'll always have our hands unless something goes horribly wrong. This is why it's so very important. This is one of the reasons why I teach Bengali crease counting. One of my students many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, was swindled by a business partner who contrived to have the swindlee, not the swindler, but the swindlee thrown in jail over the weekend. And he told me that using the techniques I taught him, both mentally and physically, helped. There is a Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. And those of us observing horrifically the resurrection of fascism are truly living in interesting times. It is my intention tomorrow morning to go over the specific method of crease counting, now that I've taken 2 different lessons to explain why counting is useful and how we need to use a method that cannot be confiscated. This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. Before we can count before we can count, we have to know what it is we're counting. We're counting repetitions. For anybody who's survived adolescent weight training, will remember that we count sets and we count repetitions. Or we count repetitions, and then we count sets of repetitions. And that truly has informed Bengali crease counting. So we have two types of repetitions. We have single repetitions and dozen repetitions. Of course, the insightful question is, repetition of what? Every time we passively notice air enter our nostrils, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb watch. Similarly, every time we passively notice air exit our nostril, we could silently and mentally recite the verb rest. No, we do not have to do this all day long. It is enough to simply do it for a few minutes once every 12 hours or so. The first of 4 tools I wish to introduce to you. 1, 2, 3, 4 tools is maybe 5 tools, is the Passaddhi Mudra or meditation gesture. It's useful for gently coalescing, for gently inviting our real or imagined subtle electromagnetic phenomena to coalesce at the crown of our head. This method is useful when we feel that we are standing on the precipice of a meltdown. It is useful at night when we lie down in bed and prepare to fall asleep. It is useful for the big sleep of death that will inevitably visit each of us, whether we wanted to or not. When death comes, it can be useful for us to exit with a modicum of peace. Peace not based on belief, but based on our own physiology. So how do we practice this Passaddhi Mudra? It is as simple as using the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. And now let us count our single repetition of watch, rest. And although that was lovely, it is scarcely enough to make a dent. So let us now count a dozen repetitions of watch, rest. To do that, we begin by drawing our attention to our right hand, and we prepare to advance our right thumb. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch during our inhalation, we will advance our right thumb across our fingers, beginning with our right little finger's lower set of creases and concluding with our right index finger's higher set of creases. So together as a team, let us practice. So the single repetition plus the dozen repetition give us 13 repetitions, which only take a little bit more than a minute. And therefore, if we wish to practice mindfulness and meditation for approximately 14 minutes, it could behoove us to count multiple sets of our 13 repetitions. Here's how we'll do that. We'll begin by counting our next solitary repetition. We'll do that on our left hand. We'll keep track of it by touching the tip of our left thumb to the lower set of creases of our left little finger. We now return to our right hand and gather another 12 repetitions. We all have neurotic tendencies. We can indulge them. No. We can repress them. No. Or we can harness them. This simple method is an excellent tool to harness our neurotic tendencies. We return our attention to our left hand and advance our left thumb yet again. Now that you have the basic idea of how to count 13 sets of 13 inhalations each, let us return our hands palms up to our lap. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 14 minutes or so. let us take a moment to explore meditation through the lens of neuroscience. If we make the mistake of overanalyzing, it will so exhaust our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex that it triggers our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. However, if instead of over-relying upon the front of our head, we passively cooperate with both aspects of our autonomic nervous system, not only will we cultivate greater awareness and peace, but will find that our anxiety and aggression have been pacified and our anterior cingulate gyrus has been gently stimulated, which is useful, for it functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of our spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of the parasympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to rest during our exhalation to such a degree that which we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel a trifle less stressful, less permanent, less defining, or in other words, less like us, and as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. It would seem that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand? We have completed our first collection of 13 sets of 13 repetitions. To keep track of our second collection, all we got to do, slide the tip of our left index finger up our right index finger until it comes to the middle knuckle. And then we repeat the whole process again, beginning with our first solo repetition. According to one of the greatest Buddhist meditation teachers of all time, Rahe Vajra of the Swata Valley, there are no preliminary practices. There is no need for visualization. There is no need for secret energy work. The essence of the path is simply watching and resting in harmony with our breathing. Everything else either supports that or detracts from that. I only teach energy work as a disabled guy to help me sit up better so I have the strength to practice. I only play with my hands to help me harness my own neuroses to be able to practice, to harness the neuroses of my autism and the scatteredness of my ADHD. Not as a cure do I play with my hands, but as merely a coping mechanism. It's time again to shift gears. We've completed so far not one, but two collections of 13 sets of 13 inhalations. To collect our third, to gather our third collection, we could just drag the tip of our left index finger up our right index up to our right index finger's higher knuckle, or we can do something completely different. We can touch the tip of our left middle finger to the lower knuckle of our right middle finger. Working with middle fingers right now. Why do that? Well, that brings the energy to the chest, which is much more sustainable, so that we have the energy to go through the day. For I do not recommend slipping one's life away in perpetual naps. Quick reminder, so this time our lettering is not in white, but it's in teal, and we have replaced the verb watch with the verb feel. Please forgive the rhyme. So in other words, as we passively notice our chest swelling with breath, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. And as we passively notice our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb rest. The fancy term for working with our middle fingers is known as sati mudra, or mindfulness gesture. Seems therefore like a very good opportunity to review mindfulness from the perspective, from the perspective of neuroscience. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of the sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, from the glorious to the grotesque. We neither chase nor flee from that which we notice. We simply sit and breathe and feel and rest. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 and a quarter hours, I would very much like to return to tomorrow's dawn practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.